Looks like it might be a small group today. It might be a small group today. Here we go. Now everybody's starting to show up. We'll give it a few more minutes here, guys, for people to jump on. But in the meantime, how's everybody doing? Thumbs up from the two people who I can see. Johnny with a thumbs up. Alex with a thumbs up. Nobody wants to be seen, huh? Are we starting to look that bad in quarantine here, guys? Letting ourselves go? I don't think I've trimmed my beard in about a month, so fortunately it's not too close. Is it Emily St. Armor that's on? What's up, Ella? Who's in the background, Ella? Is that your boyfriend? What's going on YouTube? I'm gonna do what we got over there. 4 people on YouTube. Welcome to the people on YouTube. Is that Kian that's on watching YouTube? Yep, there he is. What's up, Kian? Kian, sorry. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in too long, man. I forgot how to pronounce your name. So if you want to get on camera. Okay. Sorry, the dogs are here. All right. Why don't you guys go? Come on. Out. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'll try to keep an eye on the waiting room. I thought I turned the waiting room thing off because that's annoying, but apparently I did not. I continue to be pretty technically deficient. This week, guys, I do not have a PowerPoint or a slide presentation for you. I'm not going to try to play any videos. That clearly didn't work last week. And with all that's been going on this week, with all the different things we've been getting, all the pieces of information that we've been getting and having to sort out and get out to your parents, I just didn't have time to put together a slide presentation for you. So we'll dive right in. This week, we're talking about positive self-talk. This is something we've pretty much touched on in every one of our other sessions. In the last 3 sessions, we've used it as a tool to help you guys with other things and help you overcome mistakes, help you stay positive in difficult times. But we wanted to touch a little bit more on self-talk, how you can improve your self-talk, and some of the reasons behind why your self-talk might be the way it is right now. So one of the things I wanted to start with was making sure that we're all on the same page as far as what I mean by positive. All right. I think positive has taken on a connotation or taken on the meaning that you have to be cheerful and upbeat and everything's happy and all that. And that's not really what positive means. We can still be disappointed in how things are going, but remain positive about what we're going to do to improve it. Many of you guys probably know that I lost my training space for the Player Development Academy through all of this. And I tried to stay positive through all of it. I wasn't over here, cheering and saying, all right, yes, I lost the place that I've been training at for the last 4 months. And the business I've been building for the last 15 years is suddenly back to where we started. Woohoo! That's not staying positive. That might have been crazy. I might have been needed to be institutionalized if that's how I was taking it. But in that instance, positive meant that I sat down and I told myself, all right, I knew this was a possibility when the governor put out her executive order that gyms and indoor facilities were closed. The fact that I couldn't make any money and pay rent, that meant that my landlord had the opportunity to not keep my lease and tell me that I had to move out. So I knew that might be a possibility. I stayed positive through it and said, okay, well, how do we move on from here? And with summer coming, we can run camps and clinics outdoors. We can continue to look for a different space, maybe even a better space, one that fits our needs better, allows us to do some more things for you guys. So that was staying positive through that situation. Again, I wasn't cheering for it. I wasn't excited and happy about it, but tried to remain positive and work through it the best we could and move forward. So what positive really means, at least in this sense where we're talking about our self-talk, is good and useful thinking. All right. So we want to keep that in mind as we go through here, that our positive self-talk is good and useful thinking. And it's the inner coach that we have, the inner voice that we talk to ourselves with. Okay. So as I mentioned before, positive self-talk is one of the tools that we've mentioned in our previous lessons, and we've called it our best friend advice. So the way you talk to your best friend. And what you guys can start to do too as athletes is start to look at it as your inner coach and create the coach that you want to have in your head talking to you. Because this is going to be the only voice you have throughout your entire life until you die, is going to be the voice that's talking to you in your head. All right. So a couple of things I want to look at first is, we've talked about the best friend advice, and think back to times where you've had to give friends advice, whether it was working through a difficult situation in a game, in school, with another friend, right? And think about how you talked to them. One of the things I talk to my girls about all the time is, okay, if your friend gets dumped, how do you talk to her? What are the things you say to her, right? Tell her, oh, he's worthless. He wasn't any good anyways. You'll find something better. You're beautiful. You're great, right? But then you get dumped, and how do you talk to yourself? Probably not the same way, right? You probably beat yourself up and look at all the reasons that loser dumped you instead of why he's a loser. Okay, so think about that and talk to yourself more as a friend and as a coach to be positive to yourself. But the situation I want you guys to put yourself in right now is this. Okay, you're playing in a really big game. All your friends and family are there watching. All right, let me get Amelia on here. All your friends and family are watching, stands are packed, and you're not playing well, right? You're just having one of the worst games you've ever had. You know it, and no matter what you try to do, you just keep digging yourself a hole. So all that's going on, and all of a sudden the scoreboard, instead of showing the time and the score, starts scrolling your thoughts. Everybody there can see your thoughts scrolling across the scoreboard now. All right. Yep, Coulter, that's exactly the face I wanted to see. Probably not something you'd be real proud of, right? Probably not something you want your parents and your coach to see, your teammates to see, you know, the talk about yourself. Maybe there's negative self-talk about your teammates. Maybe there's negative talk about your coach and decisions that he or she is making. So think about that. Okay, and that's what we're trying to fix is we want, if it's going to scroll across a scoreboard, we want people to be proud of how you're handling yourself. We want you to be proud of how you're handling yourself as those are scrolling across a scoreboard. Okay, so with those in mind, or with that in mind, we've got two voices, right? Our public voice and our private voice. Our public voice is the one that everybody gets to hear. And typically we filter those thoughts or we edit those thoughts as we handle situations so that people don't know some of the things we're thinking. And then there's our private voice. This is the inner voice that only you have access to. It's your innermost thoughts. And it's the uncut version of how you process those situations, regardless of what your public voice is saying. All right. So what I want you to think about regarding your inner voice is, how does it speak to you? All right. What are the types of things it's saying? And is it someone who helps you out? I got stuff going on here in the chat. Sorry, lost my spot. So is it someone that helps you out, or is it someone that breaks you down? And we want to make sure that we're creating an inner coach, an inner voice that speaks to us in a positive manner. And that was good and useful manner, as we defined earlier. And it's somebody that's helping us out, that's building us up as we go through our daily lives, or through our games, or through difficult situations. Okay. Once we realize that our inner voice is always talking to us, we can start to take responsibility for how that voice is actually speaking to us. Okay, so we need to be able to acknowledge it, understand that there are those thoughts there, and that they're driving us to do certain things. And then once we start to understand that, recognize it, we can start to control it. All right. And again, that voice is going to be the only one you have for your entire life. So we want to make sure that it's one that contributes positively to our lives. Okay. So how do we develop a good or a positive inner coach, or a good and useful thinking inner coach? Okay, I want you to think back to one of our lessons where we talked about garbage in, garbage out. All right. So if we're putting garbage into our minds, whether that's through the people we hang out with, the things we watch on TV. So if you're watching a lot of reality TV, you're putting a ton of garbage into your head. Okay, really not learning how to realistically or deal with things in reality. All right. So make sure that the people you hang out with, the things that you put into your head on a daily basis, from the things you're reading to the things you're watching and the things you're listening to, are positive and helping you out and building you up and not tearing you down and making you feel worse about yourself. Okay. The second thing would be that we need to be able to acknowledge the negative thoughts that are going through our head. Okay. As soon as we can start to acknowledge them, then we can stop them, and then we can replace them. Okay. So what you guys need to do over the next couple of weeks here is really pay attention to the thoughts that are going through your head, and the things that then you're doing based on those thoughts, the reaction you have to those thoughts, because those thoughts start to create the feelings in your body, and then those feelings drive you to act or respond in certain ways. Okay. So I'm not going to get too much into brain science here. One, because I don't know a lot about brain science. I'm not the most intelligent guy in the world, but we have two parts to our brain. Okay. There's the unconscious part and the conscious part. We have, unconscious thoughts and conscious thoughts. When we think about the unconscious part, I want you to think about that as being a horse. Okay. Sounds goofy, but we think about that as a horse because a really broken in horse or well-trained horse like a trail horse or a horse that's in one of those pens that you might ride at a circus that just goes around in a circle. Okay. It just does its thing, doesn't put a lot of thought into it. But the moment you try to do something different, it's going to buck, it's going to stop, it's going to pull in the direction it wants to go, and it becomes difficult. Okay. And those are our habits. Those are the habits that we've created, both consciously and unconsciously, where we just kind of do things and we don't realize it. Okay. And right now, because of the way our brains are wired, you have a lot of negative thoughts that go through your head. There's a lot of negative self-talk just naturally built in. All right. So the other part of our brain, the conscious part of it, we're going to look at as our rider. Okay. So we've got a rider and we've got a horse. The conscious part of our brain is the part that hears what we are thinking and controls our behavior. All right. Well, if we don't take responsibility for that rider, or that rider doesn't take responsibility for the horse, who's in charge? The horse is, right? We can sit on a horse and it's just going to wander through the trail that it's always gone through. I don't know if any of you guys have ever ridden on a trail horse at a camp or anything, but you know, they pretty much know where to go. They know where the water break is. And if you don't want to have a water break, too bad. That thing takes you right over to the water and drinks, and then it will get on its way when it's decided it's time. All right. So what we want to do is become a rider that can manipulate and control that horse and start to create better habits so that our unconscious thoughts and habits become good ones that lead us to good behaviors and good reactions when we're in difficult situations. All right. So what's next? Think with that in mind, guys, once we can acknowledge the thoughts, all right, we can acknowledge that that horse is taking us down a bad path. That's when we can start to direct the horse in the direction we want to go. And to do that, I want you guys to use your performance journals. All right. We talked, I think, in the first week of this, the very first mental skills session was how to stay positive in a when life is terrible, I think was the title of it. Okay. And we talked about using our performance journals to keep a track of our thoughts and write down things like when I'm bored, what could I be doing? But I want you guys to go back and make sure you're using those journals again to start writing down the negative thoughts that you had. What led up to that? Okay. Even if in the middle of the day, you've got to stop and go, you know what? I want to put this in my journal. I'm having some negative thoughts right now. Things like I'm bored. To me, that's a negative thought. There are so many things you guys could be doing right now that if you're saying you're bored, that's a negative thought. What led up to that? All right. If you don't stop it, if at the end of the day you realize, hey, I had a bunch of negative thoughts today, I'm going to go back, write about some of them, write what led up to it, write what the negative thoughts were, and then write what your behaviors were afterwards. And so you can start to see then, how do these negative thoughts make me act as I let that horse, that unconscious mind, start to control me and take me down a path that I don't want to go. All right. And once you guys can start doing that, what you'll find is that it becomes easier and easier to recognize those thoughts right when they start. And from there, then you'll start to go even earlier and you'll start to recognize situations that create negative thoughts. All right. And so you can cut those negative thoughts off as you're going through a situation before they even start. And then one of the things you guys can do to help yourselves with that piece of it is plan positive. That's another tool that we've talked about in the other weeks, was we can start to write down situations where we know we go negative. Okay. Whether it's coach pulled me out, I get negative. I start telling myself, he must not think I'm any good. She thinks that somebody else is better than me and she's sitting me on the bench. Okay. So go back and think about times where you know you go negative and plan how you're going to react to those the next time they happen. All right. Plan out what you're going to say the next time you get pulled out. Plan out the next thing or the things you're going to say to yourself when you miss a shot, make a bad pass, have a bad first touch. All right. And it doesn't always have to be soccer related, right? Ella, what happens when you miss a free throw? All right. What happens when you get stuffed next time you go out for a dunk? Okay. Things like that. that you can plan for and write out your positive self-talk and then actually say those thoughts to yourself in your head. That's planning positive and practicing positive self-talk. All right. That's really all I've got for today, guys. Like I said, no slide presentation, no videos to screw us up that I have to dig back through. It's an idea that we've touched on in our other topics as well. It's a tool that you guys have that can really start to set you apart. Okay. And one of the reasons we wanted to start these mental skills development courses for you guys, not just because we're not able to get on the field, but one of the things you guys want to make sure you're doing is really getting strong in the non-soccer specific areas that can make you a better soccer player. All right. If we can develop our touch, we can develop our passing and our shooting skills, but we're weak mentally. We have bad self-talk. We go negative very quickly. It takes us a long time to get over mistakes. Then a lot of that doesn't really matter how good of a soccer player we are. Okay. Sorry, somebody's just joining. All right, so make sure that you're practicing these things. Make sure you guys are using your performance journals and really getting into this. Use the tools that we put out there. Put yourself in a situation where you know you're going to go negative and see if you can work yourself through it by planning for it ahead of time and then being aware of your thoughts as you're going through it and seeing how positive self-talk can change your behavior as you go through something difficult or something that you don't want to do. Okay, I'm sure your parents are all making you guys do things you don't want to do right now. There's probably lots of things to do around the house. I know my house looks better than it ever has. So I'm sure yours do, well, except for Zach's room. That's a disaster area, dude. But your parents are probably making you guys do things you don't want to do. And that's a great opportunity for you to practice self-talk, positive self-talk, right? Don't get upset about it. Don't start talking about how bad it is. Find a positive in it. Understand what positive meant. It doesn't mean we have to be cheery and upbeat and cheering for it. It just means that we have to have good and useful thoughts, right? So I'll open it up now. If you guys have any questions, it does look like the YouTube chat is working. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, looks like I've got 7 people over there. Feel free to drop something in the chat room there. And I've got chat open now here and Zoom as well. So feel free to drop it in there or just unmute yourself and ask away. Zach Holden, how are tryouts going to work? Well, we just sent out a pretty long and detailed email about that. I would suggest you to read that and know that we don't have a lot of answers right now. We're going to meet with all of our coaches on an individual age group basis, work through them age group by age group, and then we'll meet with each age group within Cap City separately. So all the 2009s or 2010s, things like that, we would meet with all those families to talk about how things are going to work there, because there really is no one way that every age group would work. There's different priorities within the player development aspect as we go across the board. There's different roster needs. There's different numbers. When we're playing 7v7, we want to, in 9v9, we want to have more teams so that as we move to 11v11, we've still got a lot of players that have been training with and against each other, and we can keep strong teams there. As we get into the high school ages and we're starting to look more at training you guys on how to win and how to protect leads, and we're traveling for National League across the Midwest, and we're looking at college showcases, and things change there as well. So because of all those pieces that are at play on roster selection and other issues that we face at tryouts, we just don't have those answers for you guys right now, since we've only really had this information for a couple of days. Anything else? You guys like this in school too? You never ask any questions? Everything makes perfect sense the first time through? Who are you talking to, Liv? They telling you to ask a question? Ask away, guys. It doesn't have to be on this topic. You know, this is a chance. You guys have got the director of coaching and player development for Cap City right here. See you, Will. So if you guys have other questions, I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. So if you've got questions, you're concerned, you're anxious about things, this is a good opportunity for you guys to go ahead and ask me, and I'll see what I can do. All right. Well, I don't see anything on YouTube, and there's nothing coming through here. So if you guys don't have anything else for me, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. See you later, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, Zach. Bye, Kenley.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll see you later. What's up, Liv? See you later.